Hello and welcome to the Give My Head podcast. Can you believe, ladies and gentlemen, it's episode 5. This is the 5th episode. Thank you for everybody who's been watching and listening and liking all of the bits and bobs. If you haven't seen it before, I'm Tim McGarry. These are my comedy colleagues.
Michael McDowell.
Damon Quinn.
From Give My Head Peace. And the podcast is basically about comedy, culture and life in Northern Ireland. A bit of humour, a bit of serious stuff. Just a couple of things I need to tell you about. We've only been going for we've actually only had one episode released at this stage, 2 episodes released at this stage. I got the best review ever from David Mead, who described this podcast as like the Actors Studio, but with Hallions. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is exactly what this is about.
It's a hell of a compliment.
It is a hell of a compliment. These are the 2 Hallions. Obviously, I'm the star of the show. But ladies and gentlemen, we are delighted to say that we are available for sponsorship. If anybody likes a sponsor, I like a Guinness. Michael would like a Lamborghini. Anything at all, we are available for sponsorship. Just to keep a couple of housekeeping things that people like to know. Some people say, Give My Head Piece is great. Why is it not on again? It is on. It's still on, ladies and gentlemen. It's there are 4 episodes on the iPlayer. We're doing a Christmas special this year, and we are on tour next year. If you want to buy your tickets are available for the Grand Opera House already. I'm also doing a solo tour myself, ladies and gentlemen. Tim McGarry's Ridiculous. Do you know what? I was in Q Radio the other day promoting my show, Q Radio, right? And I arrived with these here leaflets, and the Q Radio people, who were quite young, all went, What is this? What? This? And I handed these out and they went, what, paper? Like this is very 20th century. I'm starting my tour very soon. I'm all over the place, so you can get tickets for that anytime you want. So follow the pod and like it and all that sort of stuff. This week, ladies and gentlemen, we are absolutely delighted to have a very good friend of mine who is a little bit special. It's kind of not too serious, because we're not too serious in this show, but we are discussing important aspects of life in Northern Ireland, and as you probably know, we're quite divided on religious lines in this country. It may have been. Yeah, I mean, it's let's be honest, sectarianism has been a terrible, terrible blight on this society, but on the plus side, Damon, Michael and I have made quite a good career out of it. So swings and roundabouts, as we say.
The gift that keeps giving.
The gift that keeps giving. Our special guest today is a very good friend of mine, Paul Caskey OBE. We'll talk about that in a minute. Paul Caskey is none other than the chief executive of the Integrated Education Fund. So we're going to be talking about integrated education, why Catholics and Protestants should go to school together and stop throwing stones at each other and be nice to each other. Paul, I have done loads of gigs with you for integrated education, but I was recruited a few years ago by a man by the name of Brian Small, groomed, as some would say, and I have done bits and pieces for the Integrated Education Fund. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. I see you also have a stack of leaflets there. A stack of leaflets? Because, what am I doing for you now? What's that about?
Well, Thursday the 17th of October, we have another in our series of stand-up for integrated education, which you have been great at performing at every year, Tim. Yeah. This year we have Colin Murphy, another stalwart of the night, Wendy Wesson, who's performed several times for us, and for the first time in the Ulster Hall at this one is Shane Todd, who was your first guest, I think, on the podcast. So first time Shane's done this for us in Belfast, but he's done a gig for us in London previously. Yeah. So Thursday, this is the shameless plug.
Yeah.
Thursday, the 17th of October, only 25 quid.
Only 25 quid. What a night.
Superstar performers. And it's a brilliant night. And we were chatting earlier and saying sometimes people think because it's a charity gig that you're not going to get as good a value. I think you get more value, when you get performers like this all performing for one night for free.
For free.
For free.
For
free.
Well, I know.
Or a couple of pints of Guinness.
I know. I do a lot of work for charity. I don't like to tell anybody about it, but yeah. No, I don't want anything for it. OBE. But no, it is great. I've done. How many years have I done that for?
Oh God, it's supposed to be our 6th year now. Why do we break over COVID, of course?
Right. But, and why is integrated education not been sorted out? I've done 6 gigs. What the hell is the problem? Why is it not?
Well, I think we face a few barriers that you're probably all too aware of, Tim. There's some people in this society would just like to keep things as they are, and a little bit afraid of change,
Where did you go to school?
Well, I went to, apart from Kearns Hill Primary School, which I have to say is now an integrated school as of this year. So I'm very, very proud of that.
What school was in?
Kearns Hill.
Where's that?
Up in the Four Winds.
The Four Winds.
Leafy suburbs up in South Belfast. But
this is, whoa. Just, I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
I just as genuinely, I don't know what religion you are. And
That's a good thing.
That is genuine. Genuinely.
I'm Protestant, but whatever
Are
that
you?
means nowadays. Yeah, that's
Did
my
he get on our
background.
podcast?
I'm on
Gotta
it.
even-
Sorry, I
gotta
don't
even
mind.
fix up a
You're
wee bit.
a rotten Protestant. Used to call it.
So you had a good Protestant education.
I had a good education at Kernsell, and legendary no longer exists, of course, Annandale Grammar School.
And
which
what was
poor
wrong?
man's grammar school.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we're socially diverse in Annandale. We weren't like, I wouldn't name the other schools to get into trouble, but we were a controlled grammar school, so it's socially mixed, but nearly all prods.
And what was wrong with a good Protestant education? What do you want to mix it all up for?
Catholic girls are one good reason.
Well, I went to
married
Catholic-
one.
Yeah, well, did you?
Yeah. But,
I can see why you're dedicated to it.
dedicated to the cause.
No, I went to a Catholic school, and sure, nothing bad ever happened in a Catholic school, did it?
Nothing at all. No, there's nothing we could possibly say about that.
Well, I was educated by the Christian Brothers in a primary school, and I know we make jokes about the Christian Brothers. I had a great time. They were nice. They were lovely.
No violence?
No, there was violence, but not from the Christian Brothers. Funny, there was a guy with a leather strap who was he used to whack you over with a leather strap, and a guy used to bend you over and whack you with a stick as well, which is looking back now, early 70s. You go, no, seriously, bend over sort of guy.
I went to Belfast High, and we had a teacher who will remain nameless, and one of his he had 2 tricks to torture you with, and it was because I was terrible at the subject, and again I won't name the subject because I don't want to get done for libel. So he used to do 2 things. He used to make you sit if you didn't like it, and put your fingers under the door.
Under the door.
So if the door opened,
Right.
it would skin your fingers. And you had to sit there for half an hour hoping that nobody opened the door. That was it. Psychological. Yeah. Psychological torture was terrible.
Wow.
Yeah.
We had the patty bat. So we had the teacher. That's what you got. You get sent to the gym, and they cut the patty bat out and smack you with that. Yeah.
Tell the young people today, and they won't believe you, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, I hated school so much that I started bitching, even in primary school.
Yeah.
It was primary 4, and it was me and my mate and my cousin, and we decided one afternoon that we weren't going to come back after lunchtime.
Yeah.
So we went out and mitched, but we picked the wrong day because it was bucketing. It was just like, it was one of the worst days you'd go mitching. Like, we just got drenched, and we all stood around the back of the library all afternoon, did nothing, just stood around the back of the library in the rain. Yeah. So we come in the next day to school, and the teacher says, "Come out the 3 boys that weren't here yesterday." Mm-hmm. So we all stood out in front of the class. He says to the first guy, "Where were you?" He goes, I was sick. He says, "You got a letter from your mommy?" He says, "No." He says to me, "Where were you?" I went, I was at the dentist." He says, "You got a letter from your mommy?" "No." And he said to the third guy, "Where were you?" He said, "I was around the back of the library with them 2. I think he's probably a top civil servant now or something. Yes. And I'm undoubtedly an OBE.
Of course.
Well, on a slightly serious issue, we all have different experiences at school. I did an Irish history show, and I used to do a joke about how, there's some people who love their Irish history and they know everything they know about Irish history, and some people know absolutely nothing about Irish history, and I call those people Protestants. And this is true because a lot of Protestants in those days, now it's changed slightly, but a lot of Protestants learned absolutely nothing about Irish history in their school.
Yeah.
You were one of them.
I was one of them.
And that's the sort of thing about, this is kind of important because we are a divided society, and sectarianism is still rife, and the vast majority of kids still now are separated at 4 years old, aren't they? The vast majority.
Yes, of course, yeah. And but you take history, Tim, as well. And we didn't learn Irish history. We had the choice of with American history. We did British politics and everything. We never touched Irish politics and Irish history. And I remember I was going to do my O level, and I went as a politics O level, and I went in and looked up the paper. And it said, answer any 4 questions. Right, and I looked around, and the first question I seen on the bit was, construct arguments for and against the United Ireland. And I went, fucking hell, I can have a go at this. But I hadn't done that on the course, right? So I put my hand up, and the guy comes down, he says, any 4 questions you want. So I had a punt at that, and I got an A in my O-level politics. But you feel robbed. I went to university.
What were the arguments against? I can't think of any.
but and then later on, after Queen's, I went to Trinity in Dublin as well, and I met all these people all over the world who knew all these things about Irish history. I knew bugger all, and it's embarrassing. You sort of feel as if you've been robbed of something. But things are changing. My daughter Told her I would mention her. But my daughter, she's up at Lagan. She's at an integrated college, right? And she got into the car one time and she says to me, Dad, can I ask you a question? And I says, yeah, Anna, yeah, far away. He says, do you think the prisoners should have been released under the Good Friday Agreement? And I went, bugger, that's a really good question. Where'd this come from? And she says, well, we were in history and we were watching a documentary. She says, I think you might know him. He's supposed to be a comedian, but he's not that funny. So anyway, I said, right, I think where this is going. I says, it wasn't Patrick Kilty, was it? My dad, the peace deal. He says, yeah, that was it. I says, so what were you doing? He says, we were watching this in history. And I thought this was fantastic that they, at that age now, they're wrestling with those questions in a mixed class, diverse classroom, and just having those opportunities to explore things. So things are improving, but I still think there's a lot of flexibility in how history is taught within schools, And I hope it's changing. Well,
Well, it is. It is slowly changing. Yeah. It's funny. I was doing a podcast yesterday with Andrew Ryan and talking about politics and stuff, and he said most young people, it doesn't really, the sectarian thing doesn't really bother them. Yeah. But at the same time, if you go online and put something on about Oliver Cromwell or Uya up the rat, there'll be hundreds of tweets underneath and bile and crap and nonsense, and you think it's still people don't really know each other. I mean, you can still live a separate life here in Northern Ireland. Can you go to a Catholic school and be living in a Catholic area and not know anybody? You know what I'm saying?
Still vote that way, like.
Well, that's it. I mean, I say, we're still.
I think I suppose. Well, say our generation, but you know what I mean. I think we're more hung up about it. Yeah. Like I said to my big lad now, he's 21 university, and he was doing studying partition in school, and I says, "Oh Jesus, what's that like?" And he says, "What do you mean?" He says, "Was it controversial?" He says, "No, Dad, it's just history. We're just learning about the facts." I said, "But you would have people in your class who would be of Republican views, your views." Yep. Not an issue. No. And they don't, you know what I mean? I think when the younger ones are coming through and just looking at it as a period of history. But I'll tell you what I found my kids found the flag protest really, really hard to get their head around. They really couldn't get it, you know what I mean? The number of questions I got asked about that, why is that going on? Why is this happening,
Yeah.
But yeah.
And you didn't know because you hadn't done any history.
I hadn't done any Irish history. I hadn't a clue what they were talking about. But it is, I mean, you're right. You said, we're separating children from the age of 4, maybe not consciously sometimes, but, it's the inherited thing too, it's what we've always done. It's where you always went to school. And it's hard to break that down. It's hard to step outside of that normal pathway. People in Northern Ireland are still very loyal to their old schools and their old school tie. But thankfully, and you hear us all the time, thankfully the majority of people, we believe, are up for change. But
most of the opinion polls say
the
vast majority of parents say they want their kids to go to integrated
schools.
Well,
the opinion polls do say that, and of course they're treated with suspicion because people say to you, well, that's
nice.
That's all. Yeah, people give you more liberal views and all of that. The one thing I say to kind of over the last 5 years, we've had 27 schools in Northern Ireland that have voted to become integrated, and that's through a democratic parental ballot process. And the percentage averaged out of that's usually around 70 to 80%. If the parents are given the vote, will vote for it.
So many schools are actually now integrated in comparison.
Well, we're up to 73 now officially. We've about 10 awaiting decisions from the Minister of Education. There's a whole process that they have to go through. It takes a couple of years and then the minister has to make a decision as to whether he will allow the school to become integrated or not. So I would say, and we were sitting here in about 18 months' time, we'll be up into the mid-80s. So it's people say it's slow.
A couple more gigs and that will do it, I think.
A few more gigs and we'll be there. But people say it's slow. But the way I said it, this is a grassroots. This is parent-led. This is not, as we would imagine, it's not coming down from Stormont. It's hard to get that sort of support. But parents pushing from the ground up, I think it's a remarkable achievement.
I take it you're also seeing schools that are effectively become integrated. I mean, you're getting things like, like BRA. My daughter went to is effectively an integrated.
You would have another group of schools which we would put into the bracket of their sort of mixed schools, mixed enrolments, and that's encouraging. What we really want to see as well is maybe looking at the governance of schools, looking at the makeup of the teachers as well, so you're getting that whole school community perspective. So, but there's mixed schools there as well. You have the integrated schools, but that still leaves a serious percentage of schools where I think 1/3 of schools in Northern Ireland have no mix whatsoever. We're still sitting
One
on
third.
Yeah, a third of schools with no religious, not one pupil.
That's the Catholic ones, isn't it?
Well, Catholic schools are sort of less than 2% pro. That'll not be a surprise. And then you have the controlled schools, which are less than 8% Catholic. So, it's still a fairly, without boring you to death, Tony Gallagher at Queen's did research to say in the last 25 years from the Good Friday Agreement, very little has changed in terms of the composition. Apart from more people saying, well, actually, we don't want to be labelled Catholic or Protestant anymore. Yeah. We are something else, so we want to be others, and that's a whole other issue,
Well, I'm a total hypocrite, as you know. I'm a vast, hugely in favour of integrated, but both my sons went to good Catholic schools. But the reason they went, the BRA, they were interested in going, I wanted to push them to BRA, because it's mixed. It's not quite integrated, but it's mixed. But they played cricket, and they played rugby, and my sons wanted to play soccer, and St. Malachy's had a far better football team than they went.
They still do have a good football team.
They had a football team, and it's stupid things like that kind of dictate as well.
Exactly, but we're breaking this. I love when you break down all the stereotypes, right? So another proud moment for me was when there was Lagan College were the first non-Catholic school to win a GAA Schools trophy. Now, it was a very minor trophy, I can't remember the name of it, but it was historic. Right, so anyway, my son came home from school and he says, Dad, watch Newsline. He's right, what's going to have the Gaelic team's going to be on Newsline. He says, you're going to love this. Had the wee record button, and he says, right, pause, stop there, and he went through the whole team. The majority of the team were from a Protestant background. One boy was from Ballybean Estate, right? And they were mixed in, the 2 or 3 really good Gaelic players, But it's just breaking down those sort of, how we like to pigeonhole people. And a good friend, Cameron, I'm going to pick up, he'll be watching this too. But Cameron loves it. He plays five-a-side football with us on a Sunday morning, so he'll be turning up a five-a-side football, wearing his Northern Ireland international jersey with pride, with a pair of Tyrone GAA shorts. Right? He's also born again Christian, and he pop into Willowfield Church, and that's it. And the looks that he gets, but he loves all that sort of. Why not? He loves his Gaelic, loves Northern Ireland. A real hodgepodge, where that couldn't have happened, I don't think, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
You're still playing 5-a-side?
So, I won't say what we call it, but yeah, it's like a walking
like
football.
Danderball,
geriatric ball, you name it. It's but all our kids are coming through and playing with us now, which is great.
No, it's not really, because you said, but the kids, I used to play 5-a-side. Funny enough, in your school, St. Malachy's, and all the kids started, because we were getting too old and we couldn't move around, and all the kids started to play, and one of the kids who wasn't so good at football decided to do a scissor tackle, and I ended up with a fractured pelvis, so I give up 5-a-side.
You were out for months.
It's dangerous.
Yeah. Dangerous. 5-a-side is dangerous. Let me tell you.
So you're a certain age, but you're still playing 5-a-side, and you're a punk as well. You're
we'll have to get stuff off fingers on, don't we? But there is a connection. Obviously, they're big supporters of our work. Do it very quietly, very generously. But yeah, I was one of those ones. I had an older brother, 10 at your age, and we were indoctrinated in the 70s, like with Inflammable Material was the record. It was always on in our house, and so he was a Heart Bar and the Pound and all those iconic venues, drinking pints of slops for 5 or 10p. Do you remember those days?
Yeah.
But so yeah, with the whole punk scene. But then, and I was sort of brought up with that. I think that's where, for me, social issues, huge. Joe Strummer, just music that meant something, with a political edge to it, and that heavily influenced me growing up. So the punk scene, and then moving on to the likes of the Clash and things like that, and got you interested in social issues.
My son, for his dissertation at Queen's, he did history. I did the history of punk music and politics. And I go, history? What are you talking about? I remember that. History.
Well, see, I go on a bit. I have a great idea. I think it'd be a brilliant documentary to do, where there's so many people who came out of that scene who went on fantastic careers. Loads of them in the media, some of them in the BBC, Jackie Hamilton and people like that. Think of Barry McElhenney from Shock Treatment, who went on a fabulous career in publishing in newspapers and magazines. And one of our great friends, John Reid, who's now the head of Live Nation in Europe, no less. And he came out, he used to tour manage, Silent Running and all, not exactly punk, but he went on, managed to tour manage the Beastie Boys and relaunched Green Day, American Idiot, all from Belfast, who've gone on to have these incredible careers, and the thing is, they all support our work. So you know, there is a thread there. I
This
think
generation, lived through that
yeah,
crap.
yeah. You probably don't remember Roof Rex from another punk band in Belfast.
Yeah.
They were doing gigs in the late 70s to raise money for the first integrated school.
Really?
Wow.
And Paul Burgess would still be a supporter in touch with us. So.
Lagan was the first integrated.
Lagan was the first in
I think
81.
I think we did it in Pop Goes Northern Ireland. A very good
Yeah.
series that we did, by the way, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
on the archive. It's not on.
Yeah.
I think it's off iPlayer now.
It's on the
But it's
Probably get it
a great
online.
series.
But we did it in 19...
Probably on YouTube.
It's probably on YouTube, yeah.
Yeah.
1981 was like the first integrated... And there were protests outside, weren't there?
There was,
There were
yeah.
people, like, there were bomb threats and stuff.
Well, see,
and you can, like,
I think there's a myth out there that people say it's all about middle class do-gooders, alternative lifestyle alliance party, all that sort of stuff, right? But if you go back, 1981 was a pretty shit year in Northern Ireland, wasn't it?
Oh, I remember
think
well.
there's a lot of things going on, and so when that school was set up by those original parents, it was on the outskirts of the Beaver Estate in the old Ardner Valley Scout Hall, and they had a curtain dividing, the room. The first 28 children who came in there. And some were dropped off by cars, some came through buses, right? And I think even then at that time, a lot of the film footage was trying to suggest these were all, alternative lifestyle middle class kids, but they weren't. They came from all over Belfast. And, they went on, they struggled hard, they had to raise their own money to get it going. It took them about 5 or 6 years before they got full recognition. Now it's probably I think it still is the most oversubscribed school in the whole of Northern Ireland. So it's an amazing success story, and then that spawned schools in North Belfast, where the two Hazelwood schools, another school in South Belfast, and so the whole movement has been one of bit by bit growth, but a lot of hard work and a lot of determination by those people to do it.
The middle class label does still stick towards the Alliance Party voter, but then when I got involved, you meet May Blood, the least middle class woman in the entire
hero.
Hero of mine as well. The late
Yeah.
great May Blood. You knew her far better than I did. She was a superstar, wasn't she?
She was brilliant, and she just told it as it was. And you're right, and she was a skeptic. She came from, she was burnt out of her home in Roden Street, just off Roden Street, and then moved out, into Shankill. People thought of May as a Shankill woman, but she seen herself as a blow-in. And she didn't think integrated schools were for the likes of her community and things like that until, talking about OBEs and titles, when she became a Baroness, of course, everybody invited her to come out to their schools. And Hazelwood College invited her out, and all these kids in the corridor were going, "Hello, May. Hi, May." Hi, May. May's going, "What the and started to realise there were kids from the Shankill, there was kids right across North Belfast going to it. That was her sort of light bulb moment, and she went on to be our greatest champion alongside Tim, doing many things. And Tim, May.
Oh, May, what a woman! She's a great woman.
Only May could persuade this. Tim knows this one because very sad time of life. My dad was in hospital at the time, and I got a phone call from May, and she says, "Paul, I need a favour." I says, "What is it?" He says, "The Ballysillan Pensioners Club really want Tim McGarry because they were trying to go to see Give Me Headpiece in the Opera House, right? But they couldn't take everybody. They couldn't get everyone seated together, such a big group. Could we bring Tim to them? And you straight away, for me, anything,
Yeah.
And,
She was someone.
She was a real legend.
But you got the OBE. What are they called? Other
buggers efforts, yeah.
Yes, but what was your OBE for?
That's a good question. No idea. Well, it was for contribution to education, integrated education. But I'm careful what I say. I'm not a huge fan of the honour system, but I will say this: if you have it, the one thing May said to me, "For God's sake, son, use it. It's not about you. Use it for the organisation, because unfortunately there are some people out there in this world who, they see something like after your name, they'll nearly treat you differently." I'm going to let the Rotary Club down here, but I was an old Rotarian when I lived in London for years. And then when I moved back to Belfast, I said, "You should join the Rotary Club in Belfast." Rotary Club in Belfast didn't want me. So, but funnily enough, when I got an OBE, it was, "Could you come and talk to our membership here?" And which I gladly did and enjoyed it. But if it, either way, if you can open the door or two. But I'll tell you this, it's a huge honour to get it. And because of COVID, they actually were sending out emails, right? So I got this email through a strange email address as well saying, you know, and attachments. I'm not opening this. And so I looked it up and I rang a number and said, look, I just want to say to you, there's spam emails going out here reporting for people to be getting honours. Are you aware of it? And they said, well, what's the email address there, Paul? Or any email address? Well, that's actually okay. And the attachments, look, is there attachments there? Yeah, would you yeah, it's okay, open it up, tell me what it says. And I'm going through blah, 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 blah. I says, no, well, congratulations, you got it. And I went, you're kidding me? Genuinely couldn't believe it. And I told everybody, apart from my wife and kids, I said, say nothing to anybody until they publish this in the Gazette. Your brother would know all about it, Tim, wouldn't he? But
my brother has one that he
started to drag that up.
He boasts about and he puts it on his Twitter and all of that. He's very happy with his OBE.
Oh, no, it is. It's
and did you get the trip to London and all? And
I got the trip to London. Went to Windsor Castle for Princess Anne.
And did you get a decent royal or what level?
Princess Anne, she was lovely. And, you know, it is when you watch them doing it, how they remember. Well, obviously they're well briefed, but, you know, the conversation's good and she seems to be well informed. You know, here integrated education's growing, Paul, is that right? And, you know, there's more schools than ever before. Well, yes. But, you know, you get a few, it's a few seconds really. And it's, you know, but once you've done it, that's it. But you're terrified. I was scared of making the balls up, basically, but managed not to do that. But a huge honour, you know. And I pinch myself all the time. But I say sitting here, I don't want to embarrass myself, but, you know, with Tim and yourselves and the people through this work that you meet and people who are the most genuine, nicest people. Tim knows a lot of them, and you know they really are good people. And you know, in the outside world, I don't know what people view of them, but
well, I mean, my involvement was through Brian Small.
Smalley. Big shout out to Smalley.
Yeah, big shout out to Brian Small, a great champion. But again, I get asked to do lots of charities. I have about 3 or 4 that I do stuff for. Wave and you and Tools for Solidarity, great charity, local charity. But it's the people as well. You go, well, these people are souls. Are they going to treat you all right? And you know, do they rip the arse out of it? And is it good crack? You know, and you have ripped the arse out of it.
that was certainly enough done.
But I do get invited to the House of Lords every now and again for dinner, which is
and that's a real mix of people in it. Like you think it's all going to be stuffy and snobby, and you know have some of our big business supporters, but people are from the world of arts. Olivia Nash have been there, of course, and a whole range of people. Ali from SLF.
Well, somebody that you know, who we know, that we very helped introduce you to, which is Niall Leonard.
Absolutely,
the great Niall Leonard. Niall's connection with us goes back.
Absolutely.
25 more years. Yeah. Niall Leonard was the script editor on Two Ceasefires and a Wedding, and went on
Isn't
to
that amazing? Yeah.
help us with the first few series of Give My Head Peace. Brilliant script editor, really, really tough on us, but brilliant. But sadly, he's now less famous than his wife, Erica Leonard James, Neil James of 50 Shades of Grey.
That's right.
Married a fella from Newry. Can you beat it?
It's a brilliant story, and
it's a brilliant. Hang on,
and what
50 Shades of Grey, right?
Oh, right, sorry.
Christian Grey, a billionaire with a red room of pain and all of that there, and it's written by a woman who's married to a fella from Newry. Christian Grey is based on a fella from Newry. That woman deserves every penny she's got. She must have the best imagination.
Did you see you saying they practiced some of that in the car?
What?
Did you hear this?
Oh, what?
Well, it wasn't not the most reputable in a car, not the most reputable paper, but they were saying. But I was reading, they were going, what? So there was Niall Leonard telling me how him and the missus got it on the car to try out some of the stuff from the book.
I thought Newry ones always did it in a car.
Is that right?
Yeah, partly so.
All right,
partly so. Yeah.
Anyway, Niall's a gentleman. He's been a great friend of ours, and I was happy to introduce. Did I introduce him or did
you introduced him? Yeah, you did introduce him. And it took a bit of time. His mother, I think, had sadly passed away, and they very generously made a contribution from that, and we took it from there. And then last year we had the Leonard family en masse from all over the world, and Tim, you were there too. Came up to Integrated College Glengormley, which is another tough gig. You know, it's not easy up there. And they became an integrated school a few years ago. I think they had about 600 pupils before integrated status, and now they're over 1,000.
Right.
You know, and they're attracting, you know, the local Catholic communities coming in to go to the school as well. So, but Niall's been very helpful with that school and getting it off the ground. So, very honoured to have him as a supporter. Tim, thank you.
No,
really do appreciate it. Like, you know.
But there are good guys. Carl Frampton and stuff. I does stuff with cars.
Yeah. So Carl's been brilliant, you know, his story. Again, you know, dispelling this sort of middle-class myth, you know, but Carl's got devoted a lot of time to it. And
Well, you wouldn't tell Carl he was in the wrong, would you?
yeah, well, absolutely not.
I heard he's tiny. Just running, just hold him by the head like that. There.
Yeah, no, having people like Carl and people like me, it's really helpful, and he's hopeful that his children now go to a school, and we're hoping that they've shown an interest in becoming integrated. When he lived in Banbridge, his kids went to Bridge Integrated Primary School. But you need champions. Like, it keeps the profile high, you know, it gets the message out there. And as I said, like, you know, these aren't people looking at, you know, for glory or publicity or OBEs. Well, most of them anyway. And so you're sort of hoping that, you know, there's a genuineness, it's very authentic in what they're saying, and it's powerful. And Liam Neeson's another one, I have to say. Like, you know, you ask him to do anything and he will do it for you. But you do it within reason, you know, you don't want to piss them off. And, you know, if you go
Liam
to people
Neeson
too
warmed up
often,
for me.
like, you know.
He warmed up for you?
Liam Neeson warmed up for me. I was with May and we opened this as an extension in Ballymena. It was
Oh, that's right.
Ballymena. And he warmed up. I was the main attraction, obviously.
Yeah.
And he
Obviously,
warmed up.
yeah.
Well, when I say warmed up for me, he was on video from LA. Didn't know I was there. It was pre-recorded. But at the same time, I can say he warmed up for me.
Yeah.
Northern Ireland being Northern Ireland, Liam Neeson is my brother-in-law's cousin.
For God's sake.
Well, he's your brother-in-law's
My
cousin?
brother-in-law's cousin. Yeah.
Well, his sister taught me Miles in Annandale.
See, that's Northern Ireland for you.
And then his sister married my, Sean's cousin. So we're
related.
we could be related to him. That's a bit
no.
scary, you know.
No,
but
you
the
can't.
Glens of Antrim is a funny place, isn't it? Like, you know. But yeah, no,
Liam
he's
Neeson's
been
agreed and
fabulous too.
integrated education. Yeah. I will look for you.
Yeah,
I will
no,
find
that's
you.
been- yeah,
But-
absolutely.
Go back to the history. We do a wee show, long and the short of it, with David Hume of the Orange Order, and go back. I mean, I've got a middle class Catholic background, but I wouldn't know any Orange man until I met him doing a TV show, and you'd think we have an image of the Catholic community, the Orange Order. It's not very favourable. David's an absolute gent, and we do this show together, long and the short of it, where we discuss controversial moments of Irish history and stuff like that. But going back to the history, I didn't realise until recently that you go back to the start, foundation of the state of Northern Ireland.
That's right.
Lord Londonderry, Unionist government, proposed that the education system here would be integrated from the early 20s.
That's right.
And who stopped it? Well, it was a combination.
I really couldn't think.
I really
There was
couldn't
a
think.
few people.
It was a
Yeah.
combination of the Catholic Church saying, no, we want
Yeah.
to keep hold of our
That's right.
church, and also right-wing unionists who put pressure on Craig saying, no, we want to keep control of
That's
our,
right. Yeah.
our schools at the time.
Yeah.
And that's kind of still...
Set the wheels in motion, in it, for
But that was the early 20s, wasn't it?
the early 1921, I think it was. And but yeah, you're right. But I think at that time the Catholic Church was very suspicious of a unionist government and what it would do within education and schools. But the Protestant churches weren't exactly delighted about it either. And then eventually they transferred. We have these complicated terms like the transfers. But basically the Protestant churches transferred their authority to the state, but in return for places on boards of governors. So they still retain a role within the schools. So our education system, as you know, is complex. It's a bit of a mess, and it's hard to get your head around. But you know, there are still prominent roles within the state schools for the Protestant churches.
And are there too many schools because of all this?
Yeah. This is it. I mean, one of the things we've been involved in over a number of years called Future Schools. You've got a village, you've got two schools. The Department of Education views both of them as unsustainable. That's one school's got 50 kids, another school's got 50 kids. You say, well, if you had one school, it might be sustainable going forward. So, as birth rate goes up and down, but yet right across the board, there are too many schools in Northern Ireland. But it gives a wee bit of hope. In Glenarm on the Antrim coast, we had Seaview Primary School, which was a Catholic primary school. And about 10 or 15 years ago, they decided that the Protestant school in the village was no longer sustainable, so they closed it. Prods all went up the hill to another school. And Seaview was sitting there with about 40 or 50 pupils, and the Catholic Church said, we're going to close you. And so there was people within the village were going, hang on, here, we're going to take our last primary school out of here. Is anyone want to live in Glenarm? And so they had a conversation and discussion and said, look, if we would become an integrated school, perhaps the Prods wouldn't leave and they would come here. And that's exactly what's happened. So that school's gone from an enrolment of about 40, anticipated to go over 110, I think, by this September. The Prods have all come in, they've embraced it. The teacher or the principal there is brought in, saying to Tim earlier, different sports, maybe cricket and hockey and rugby, they wouldn't have done that before. So now you've got a very successful village school and everybody's benefiting from that. So I think there'll be a lot of logic in doing that in other places in Northern Ireland, but you have to have the community behind you. You need people to want to do it. And then when you get that, then you face all the hurdles and the barriers from the establishment, if you like, that don't want our schools to come together. And that's hard. It's hard, and it takes. And I think when you understand that through the history of it, you see why it's been a gradual progression as opposed to a big tsunami of integrated education.
And there's big politics as well. Because I remember when you tried to close St Mary's and have one. People forget.
God forbid, one teacher training college.
Our teachers are educated separately. So if I want to be a teacher, I either go to St Mary's or to Stranmillis, and Stranmillis. Well, St Mary's is a bit all Catholic.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
pretty much. I mean, technically it's open, is it, or is it?
Well, see, technically everything's open. Technically, there's no. Anybody can go
all
to any
schools,
school.
Yeah,
you can go to Catholic school if you're abroad if you wanted to, but they just don't want to. We know why, but yeah. So it's weird, isn't it? We have our trainer teachers separately. There's been some progress there. There's a wee bit of collaboration. There's been a bit of progress in the Catholic RE certificate that you need to teach in a Catholic school, where perhaps if you're not a Catholic, you used to have to go to the Open University, I think, to get it, but you can do it now through Stranmillis. So there's a wee bit of progress there.
Only we could come up with a Catholic 11 plus and a Protestant.
There you go. Exactly. Yeah.
Could only up in here.
I know.
That's right. That was a terrible exam at 11 plus. I'll tell you what, we'll switch it and give you 5 different exams to go through.
Yeah. But no, you're right. Teacher training is a big issue, and it was only a couple of years ago we actually got I don't know how many people knew this, but there was the Fair Employment Treatment Order.
Oh yeah.
Back your legal days, Tim. It was mad to think that existed, that schools could effectively discriminate
Michael
on the
McDowell and I
basis.
sorted out religious discrimination. We were worked for the FEC. Took us two
Both of you?
2 years we sorted it
Oh my
out.
God.
2 years we sorted it out.
Ended religious discrimination in employment, but there was this loophole that was put in by the Catholic Church.
I think it was, yeah.
And it basically said if in the appointment of a teacher in any school, you could discriminate on the grounds of religion. So you could say, if I have a Catholic school, I will only want a Catholic to teach geography or French or whatever.
But not chemistry, because you need a prod to do that.
You wouldn't want a prod teaching you history. Then come on, catch yourself up. But that loophole was only removed there a couple of years ago.
A couple of years ago, yeah. So that was a big breakthrough, But you were saying about, we're too political about it because we're a non-political organisation. But the barriers that you face, and sometimes you always feel to yourself, you just can't bloody win. So it was a couple of years ago, say, on there was John O'Dowd from Sinn Féin, and he did apologise, so I'll give him that. But he stood up in the assembly and said, integrated schools were all about paying homage to the Queen, wiping out Irish culture and history and identity and stuff like that. So you get that on one side, and on the other side, it's just some sort of a takeover bid. We're losing our schools, and it's like some sort of like a pan-nationalist front creeping in. And the way I look at it is, well, we can't be both. And so you're trying to do your darndest genuinely to accommodate as all shades of opinion, religious, cultural, those of no religion, and obviously we're a much more diverse society as well. So
yes, but if they're both having a go at you, you must be doing something right.
That's it. And having said that, Sinn Féin have moved significantly. We even got the SDLP to move, which was, I think, remarkable because in the history of time, that have been very close with, with the hierarchy. But we're seeing a lot more progression now within that, and we're trying our best with the DUP as well.
You said Jimmy Bryson wouldn't be like that if he'd gone to an integrated school.
Well, you see, couldn't possibly comment on that one. But then people will tell there's been some hellions who've gone to integrated schools.
Well, that's true. I mean, they're not exactly perfect.
Well, when the Holy Cross dispute was going on, and they interviewed some kids from Hazelwood, I don't mind saying this, and who lived up in the Glen Bryn, and they were going to an integrated school. They loved their integrated, spoke very passionately about it, but the realities of going home and living in a community where there's pressure from that community to go out onto the street and engage and get involved and stuff like that, and of course then people, tut, integrated schools don't work, and you go, God, get real here, you know what I mean? You can't. These are real lives for people. You're doing your best, and it's
you can be idealistic about it. You can go,
absolutely,
it's rainbows and everybody holding hands and stuff like that. It's not really like that, and it's the same with the peace walls and stuff. It'll take years, won't it? Get rid of the peace walls.
I remember one kid came into Hazelwood one day with a school bag, and they were talking about the flag protest. He had a bag full of Union Jacks in it. right? And the principal, come on, let's talk about this, But that meant a lot. He was very passionate about it. But so I think there is this view that it's all sweetness and light, and it's all everybody's loving each other, and. I hope by the end of it, what you're doing is you're giving young people that
Colin Murray
Colin
Murray, the DJ, we interviewed him for a radio show I did. It was great about integrated education. He said the best thing about integrated education is, see at lunchtime, he said the football teams pick themselves. There's a self- Go, all right, I got you. So it's still there, it's still there, yeah.
But and of course our current Northern Ireland captain, Trey Hume, is a former pupil.
Is that right?
Of Slemish Integrated College.
Yes, there's a lot of
Brad Small reminded me of over the weekend. So we're getting some esteemed alumni sort of coming through, and they're great role models too, for young people coming forward, and you look at football, and I'm a passionate Northern Ireland fan, and you look how the fans can change things dramatically. I don't mean the IFA or anybody pushing things down, but when the fans come together, think back, the full Neil Lennon affair, and this is important to me, but the atmosphere at Windsor Park changed. Not because some bigwig from the IFA or whatever said you need to get the grips with it. It's because the supporters changed, and the amalgamation of Northern Ireland supporters clubs. They were the people who were policing it. We were the people who were stamping out the sectarianism. And you'll always get an odd thing, but you're going to get that everywhere.
Well, I'm a big fan of local football, and it has.
We got Cliftonville in,
Did you hear we won the Irish Cup? No.
Yeah.
But I mean, it has completely changed from when I was younger and watching it. It's completely changed. I mean, they still get the odd. We got a Wolf Tones tribute act who turn up at some of the big matches. Which we could do without. But
Wolf Tones tribute act.
Well, no, it's basically kids singing "Ooh up the rah." But
a tribute
the
act.
Wolf Tones in tune are bad enough. The Wolf
exactly.
Tones out of tune, Jesus. But they're genuinely a small minority, and they are. You're right. Most of them are policed by other fans, and it has changed. I mean, there was a massive crowd at that final, and
you say massive, Tim. Hang on. When you say
15,000.
Okay.
Linfield have their blue, whatever it is, arseholes or whatever, and we have a few arseholes. But it has changed.
It's moved. And I think I've been involved with, trying to help out badly with coaching football, with Rosario Football Club. But you see the movement now, young people. I remember growing up, if a prod signed for Celtic or a Vice for Ranger or Catholic for Ranger, it was a big deal. But you watch these kids coming through now, and they just want to play for what they believe is the best football club. So you look at the setups of Cliftonville and the likes of Glentoran and Linfield, it's completely mixed now.
Rosario Football Club. We used them to film we did a spoof on Geordie Best Life, and we used Rosario Football Club to provide the extras and footballers, and we had to get all these kind of replica shirts back in the 60s, and we got them, and do you know what, we handed about it must be about 25, 30 shirts, got 5 back.
What can you say? When was that?
That was a long time ago. They lied to me, and I had to Durham. I was George Best, obviously the good-looking one. I had to dye my hair black, and they lied to me and told me it was a washout. And 6 months later, I still had black bits.
That's right. And we actually did a kind of Ted Lasso thing, because we actually had you made a disastrous transition to American football. You thought it was soccer, but you're actually playing American football. And with these guys, because it just kind of become a thing, and he got hit by these American footballers about 20 times. He couldn't walk at the end of football.
And the worst thing was it never saw the light of day, this thing. It's actually very, very funny.
It's probably on YouTube.
The Jodie Higgins story. It was about the life of Northern Ireland sporting stars and how they were all alcoholics and not great role models for us.
Brilliant.
Very funny.
The self-destructive Northern Ireland sports stars sort of died out.
Not enough of them anymore. They're all
clean
nicey now. Your Carl Framptons and your Rory McIlroys and all of that. They need to
too nice.
Too
well behaved.
Yeah.
Far too clean living.
Reece McClanahan, I won an Olympic gold. Big deal, come on, go ahead.
You can't go drinking and win an Olympic gold.
And the pummel horse. Hold on, just put my fag out here.
Get back on the pummel horse.
But there's a lot of I remember Eamon Holmes telling me one time, he says, people in Northern Ireland are so begrudging, right? You come home, he was a big Man United fan, of course, and he used to come home and take the kids over to watch United, and he's guaranteed if there was anybody from Belfast on the bus, they'd be staring him up and down, look at him and all. And there was these two women, and he could overhear them. And he said, "Look at the state of him." He says, "He's even fatter off the TV than he is on it." And I remember Eamon just turning around and go, "Well, thanks a bloody lot. Like, I'm taking my son's to a football match and all you can do is abuse me." But if I was Alex Higgins or George Best, would be like, "Hey, go for it," like, you know. But I don't know.
Yeah, we are a bit begrudging, aren't we?
Oh,
Yeah.
well, we don't
Liam Neeson nominated for an Oscar and he didn't win it. No, yeah.
Yeah.
For an Oscar, couldn't even win it, Nick. And if he had won it, tell you what, you'll not win it next year.
Oh, dear.
Yes, it was like that. Clinton coming twice. You used to do it in your stand-up. What are you doing here?
Everybody going, "Oh, Bill Clinton's come." The second time, you back again. What do you want? There's no home to go to.
Well, sure it keeps us right, doesn't it?
Well, look, I think if future generations will look back at us and go, "Look at those idiots, what the fuck were they at, separating their schools and all." It's happening slowly. We'll probably not live to see it.
No. Because I'm very confident it will accelerate in the next few years. I genuinely believe that. I think there's just a will to make it happen. Unfortunately, we need to get those politicos up in the hill to move it forward for us, because you can do so much. You can do so much pushing from the ground up. You need a bit of top-down support. But we've got this new legislation that came through thanks to Kelly Armstrong, which does strengthen the legal position. So the Department of Education has a legal duty, to support, encourage and facilitate. It used to have one to encourage and facilitate. It didn't do that much with it. But this one places additional commitments on them. So they actually, by law, they have to measure demand for integrated education and then plan to meet that demand. That's going to be a struggle because you know what it's like with the law. A lot's open to interpretation. But we've got that on our side now as well. So if we can keep pushing that and get that implemented and keep pushing the will of the people coming through, and all we can do is empower. That's what we do. We empower parents, we empower schools, and then we try and support them on that journey. And it can be difficult. Some schools, I was saying earlier on about like Sam Mills, it's got a great history of integration throughout the village. To them, it's a natural step forward, to make it official. But you're also working with schools in very challenging areas that are probably, 100% one or the other. And that can take a bit of time, Cliftonville's been a great success story on the Cliftonville Road, Tim. We've gone from 150 pupils to over 400 pupils, and everybody from the local community is going to that school now. And it's a tough area, the kids, high numbers of free school meals and all that. So it's right across the board. It's most definitely not a cosy middle class thing, It's for everybody, including the cosy middle class area.
Including the cosy. Well, that's
we'll embrace everything and everybody.
They could leave their Range Rovers at home when they're dropping their kids to school. That would be good.
That's just the principles, isn't it? You always kick the teachers.
The teachers, no, I'm just jealous, and the teachers are back at work. Good to see. Listen, final plug for we're on. Is it October the 17th?
It's October the 17th.
Last year,
not the 18th.
Last year, Wendy Wason was supposed to do the gig and she got COVID and she couldn't do the gig, so it ended up Connor Keys very kindly stepped in.
It was brilliant.
There was me, Connor Keys, Colin Murphy, and who else? Me, Connor Keys, Connor Murphy,
Neil Delamere.
Neil Delamere.
Yeah.
Basically. And I went, hang on, we're all for integrated education. It's 4 takes on stage. 4 take meals on stage. This is like my primary school. Yeah. It's like going back to flipping primary school. Okay.
Is that why you asked Shane to do it? Shane, is that right for it?
We did token prod.
Token prod. But he's going to be good, and it's brilliant. 25 quid, you can get them through the box office.
Bargain.
And it sells out every year, so get in quick.
Before you go, would you like to write out...
There will be a link, at the bottom of the podcast there'll be a link. And a link for that as well. Dan Quick shaking his head. No, you're right. That's more important.
Oh, for the children. For the children.
They don't care about us. Paul, thank you very much for being on the Give My Head podcast. You're very, very welcome.
Before you go, would you like to write out for and against the United Ireland?
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Could be here a while.
Would be able to say we had a health service, and now we can't do that.
I know.
It's all for now.
Roads.
You used to be able to say the Dole was more here as well. We can't say that anymore.
It's all changed.
I know. All changing. Thank you.
Paul Caskey, thank you
Appreciate
very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the Give Me Head podcast. We'll be back next week with Paddy Jenkins. Paddy Jenkins, Pastor Begbie out of Give Me Head Peace. We'll be in this very studio. In the meantime, like, subscribe and all of that. And any sponsors you're interested, we'd love to talk to you. Thank you very much. See you again.